my name is Fira Yunika. I'm from Class B, English Literature UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. The focus of my presentation is the rise of racism and discriminations against Asian community during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our aim is to be aware of how racism and discriminations negatively impact the Asian community. I plan to talk about 10 minutes or less, and I have divided my talk into 5 sections. First, I will give an overview of why Western countries blame Asians for the spread of COVID-19. And second, we will discuss about factors that cause Asian-focused racism continue to increase. Next, I will point out negative attitudes toward Asian groups, followed with some cases involving racial issue, and then I will make it clear again why racial discrimination is a serious concern. And finally, I will conclude with a discussion about things that we can do to limit the racism and discriminations. If you have any question, you can write it down below on the comment section. Okay, now let's begin with an overview of why Western countries blame Asians for the spread of COVID-19. It is believed that the COVID-19 pandemic came from Wuhan, China. China's officials made a major mistake in the early period of the pandemic when they prevent the disclosure of the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan. As the other countries afraid of catching the disease, many people are focusing on China's filing, and this led to the racism and discriminations. Moreover, Western governments are trying to pin the blame on China to divert attention from their own failures in controlling the spread of COVID-19 in their own countries. Now let's look to the factors that cause Asian-focused racism continue to increase. The discriminations against Asian community will more likely to increase as the number of the infections and the deaths continues to grow, followed with the use of racial slur by political officials to shaming on China, and this is distribute to the rise of racism and discriminations. Often media outlets have had misleading headlines, and they often propagated China blaming narrative. For example, the accusation that Beijing faked the number of infections and deaths, and that which have been confirmed as fake news. Now let's move to the negative attitude toward Asians. Negative attitudes toward Asians that we can notice easily is that people use race to determine of who might be infected, while in fact the dissemination of the disease is not according to the race at all. It could be anyone from anywhere. And then social media user that believe social media is accurate is more likely to perceive China's as a symbolic threat, and they tend to use racial slur to mock and provoking China's and on social media. And did you know, since January 2020, many Asian Americans reported suffering from racial slur, discriminations, being spat on, and even physical violence. As we can see on the slide, cases regarding racial issues in 2020 occurred with Asians as the victims. Perhaps many more cases might have happened out there without our knowing it. And now I want to make it clear that racial discrimination is a serious concern. We should be worried about the racial violence against Asian community because the rest of racism and discrimination may lead to the rise of physical violence. And I do want to point out that these current situations may be challenge for nations to move to normal social interactions in the future. And finally, we came to the conclusions. Things that we can do to prevent and limit the racism and discriminations. At least there is two things that we can do. First, we have to educate the public about the transmission of the COVID-19, and we have to make it clear for them that race is not that the transmission is not based on the race, and government should use social media to counter the racism and discriminations as they should. And remember that coronavirus is not an excuse for xenophobia.